For once, well, not for once, just to be different from the norm, a left winger has been arrested for their speech. It's not doesn't usually happen. I know it's quite strange, and one of the things that happens whenever this happens, everyone was like, where are the freeze peach? Where are the freeze peach warriors? Yeah, fucking blow it out your arse. But anyway, let's actually get into it. A protester standing outside the Conservative Party conference in Manchester with a handmade sign reading "Pretty Fascist" during the Home Secretary's speech to delegates was arrested and bundled into a police van. He's not wrong, is he? Pretty fascist. Yeah, he is wrong. Pretty Patel is not a fascist. However, this gentleman here, you know his politics just by looking at him. Don't even need the sign. But him standing there holding that sign, 100% protected freedom of speech. Absolutely 100% freedom of speech. What he's doing. He was subsequently de-arrested, but how on earth does GM Police justify the fundamental denial of rights to freedom of expression and assembly? Absolutely correct. Absolutely correct. I completely agree with you. I completely agree with you in every aspect of that phrase. The man should not have been bundled into the van at all in the first place because he was just practicing his human right of freedom of speech. That's all good and fine. Yep, I completely understand that. He should not have been arrested at all. And the denial of rights to freedom of expression and assembly, yes, I completely agree with you, Netpol. Hopefully you say the same about all speech and assembly, although I don't think you do. But anyway, Liam Garibaldi, who lives near Manchester, told us within 30 seconds of holding this sign outside the Conservative Party conference, it was confiscated by Manchester police for offensive language. Who gives a shit? Offensive, so what? It was offensive. And. Literally and. Who cares? Being offensive, well, sorry, I was going to say, being offensive is not a crime. Unfortunately, in Britain, it is a crime. You can be arrested for offending people, which is something that you have absolutely no control over. Honestly, you could say anything these days and someone will get offended over it, and there you go, you've committed a crime and the police have an excuse to arrest you. I mean, it's weird. It's almost like the government wants that arbitrary grey area shit. But anyway, when I asked to have my property back, I was arrested for breach of the peace. Breach of the peace for saying to the police, "Hi there, my property that you just stole from me, can I have it back?" Breach of the peace. Okay, shut up. As Priti Patel laid out her crackdown on protest inside, I was in the back of a van for simply standing alone with a piece of cardboard. If anything, I'm more convinced now that this sign is the truth. It's not the truth. I will admit, though, what Priti is planning on doing about protests is very, very wrong, and I do not agree with it whatsoever. Definitely do not agree with it. The right to protest, it's unfortunately the right doesn't get to do it. The right doesn't really get to do it very much unless we want to be branded as terrorists and stuff like that. However, the right to free protest is extremely important, and yes, I agree. Find out more about the potential impact of the government's new proposals to punish protesters, and what are the government's latest proposals for punishing protesters. You know what? Let's just keep going with this video and see what this is here. Let's have a wee quick look then. Let's do a wee bonus article. Fuck it. Netpol. Am I going to get a list for visiting this fucking website? The Network for Police Monitoring. What are the government's latest proposals for punishing protesters? On Sunday at the Conservative Party conference in Manchester, Home Secretary Priti Patel announced the latest punitive proposals for new police powers. Oh, the government loves itself some new police powers. And her ongoing vendetta against political and social movements the government refuses to engage with. Now, the government doesn't have to engage with you. They don't have to give you the time of day. However, they do have to let you protest. Obstructing the highway, something that I absolutely do not agree with. The new, because you are putting lives at risk, and we discussed this in a previous video. They were blocking ambulances. A woman was paralysed because of them blocking the highway. The new measure that has attracted the most media coverage is tougher punishments for obstructing the highway in response to motorway protests by the group Insulate Britain. If enacted, Patel's plans would mean a conviction for obstructing a highway will change from a maximum of £1,000 fine to an unlimited fine, 6 months imprisonment, or both. It is unlikely to deter campaigners who are committed to using direct action tactics to highlight the lack of government action on the climate crisis. Several injunctions taken out by the National Highways Agency have so far failed to stop protests, despite protesters being threatened with contempt of court charges. Now, the problem with that is you bring harm to people, you block emergency vehicles. I think that just the other day, the leader of Extinction Rebellion says, yes, I would block an ambulance if it had a dying person in it. I believe. I just saw the headline, so maybe that's true, maybe it isn't, maybe it was out of context, who knows. But considering the way they conduct themselves, like, I mean, I don't know if you saw that old video of this was a previous like highway blockage that they did, and they were like, you know that you were blocking a woman going to hospital, and the woman was like, yeah, that's quite sad, but you know, the climate is a fucking be scumbags, so they are. However, the poorly conceived intention here is apparently to make it easier to hold particular detainees on remand until they are brought for trial, which the police cannot do right now because blocking a road is not considered a serious enough offence. And I think the reason that they did that is because they were arresting them, processing them, and then as soon as they let them out, they went straight back to the motorway. They went straight back to the fucking motorway. And blocked it again. In practice, the law says an offence is committed only if an individual blocks a road without lawful authority or excuse. Protests often block roads and can represent a lawful excuse for temporarily holding up traffic. So the police and the courts, if someone is charged with an offence, are supposed to consider Article 10, rights to freedom of expression, and Article 11, rights to freedom of assembly. And what they're referring to there in Article 10 and 11 is the European Convention of Human Rights, which the British government and Scottish government claim to support, and they will cite it when it benefits something that they want, but when it comes to violate, they don't care. They see, one thing that I've stopped doing is I've stopped citing Article 10 towards the Scottish government because they don't care. You know, it's kind of like asking Saddam Hussein and Udi Hussein or Qusay Hussein, what about the Geneva Convention? They'll laugh in your face. They don't care. They don't. What about the European Convention of Human Rights? Nicola Sturgeon wipes her arse with that every night before she goes to sleep, right? Like, fucking, they don't care, right? So you can cite these, magical piece of legislation. Sounds lovely and it sounds great on paper, but it's not much use if governments can't be held to account to actually implement it, right? And they don't. They fucking break it all the time, right? Our worry is that by suddenly treating any inconvenience to traffic as a serious crime, the government is encouraging the police to make more arrests more quickly in circumstances that are unfair and arbitrary. The same outcome the new provisions in the Police Crime Sentencing and Courts Bill and shutting down noisy process seem intended to achieve. Now, one of the things as well is like blocking highways and motorways and stuff like that. No, you are fucking up everyone's day, and especially blocking emergency vehicles. You've no idea like where people are going. People might be going to, there was an old woman whose son was driving her to go to a cancer appointment so that she could get her fucking chemotherapy. And you were blocking that shit. So see how that type of stuff, you are putting human lives at risk, right? So no, you don't have a right to jeopardise other humans' lives, which is what you're doing by blocking the highway. Everyone's, right for the protest, that's fine. Do it somewhere else. Do it in all these public areas. Do it on the street and everyone. Do not block the road because you are blocking people's routes to healthcare and possibly life-saving treatment. There is going to come a point, there's been a few close calls, but there is going to come a point where someone is going to die because you blocked the fucking road. Right? It's going to happen. It is going to happen. As far as noisy protests, like, yeah, it's a protest. Like, I don't... Does anyone go like that? Oh, protest. No one thinks of a quiet affair. A quiet affair where everyone's just sitting, looking at their phones. No one's talking. It's completely silent. You just turn the corner in the street and just see like 500 people, and it's just absolute silence. Yeah, no one goes like, oh, I feel like falling asleep. I'll stick on some protest videos. Those will help me, right? Protests are fucking noisy, so that's dumb. That's fucking stupid, right? But as far as our friend back here, who held up his little sign, which, although the sign is just absolute utter hyperbole, it's hyperbolic nonsense, this is 100% protected freedom of speech, and he should not have been... Oh, well, he was de-arrested, he was let out of the van. He shouldn't have been in the van in the first place, right? He shouldn't have had the police come up and accost him taking his property from him and then bundling him into the van against his will. His rights were violated by the police because we don't have freedom of speech in this country. The police can't arrest you for things you say and for causing offence. But the next generation, a lot of the new Zoomers that are coming onto the scene, they seem to really, really like freedom and really, really hate big government. So there's hope.